Vanakkam. Hello, friends. In the search for our roots, with the historical and archaeological evidence being scarce, we have been relying on Tamil, that fine organ of thought so envied by Caldwell. And we saw in the previous episode how archaeolinguistics, with its scientific tools like palatalization, help in reconstructing the antiquity of a language, and how the Bayesian study itself identified the source of the mother language Tamil to be around 6500 years old. Well, could the language be much older? We also saw of the rich and vast vocabulary of the language, attesting to the depth and the wideness of its roots. The linguist Edward Sapir said, "The complete vocabulary of a language may be indeed looked upon as a complex inventory of all the ideas, interests, and occupations that take up the attention of a community. Culture, language, and literature evolve in that order to form an ethnic identity. And if we were to take this up in reverse, starting with literature, we know that the earliest extant literary work in Tamil is the corpus that we call the Sangam literary works, which are by themselves over 2200 years old, and an attempt to reconstruct the Tamil past as embedded in the Tamil literary works, subjecting them to a scientific philological study, was spearheaded by a small group of missionaries who came from abroad in the 16th and 17th century, such as Robert D. Nobili, Constantine Joseph Beschi, Veeramamunivar, the Tamil Aharadi that we saw in the previous episode, Zegan Balk, just to name a few. They did come here to spread the word of the gospel, and to facilitate their mission ended up learning Tamil, falling in love with the language, and contributed immensely to its growth and to popularize it abroad. One of their contributions being bringing the printing press to India. It is very surprising to see that the first printed book in any of the languages of India, for that matter any non-European language, was in Tamil. In October 1578, a Jesuit priest by the name Henrique Henriquez published Thambiran Vanakkam, a book of prayer in Tamil, here in Kollam, that is Quilon, with a mission imported from Portugal and paper imported from China, by using the typeset that was there in the palm leaf manuscripts. Now we should remember that this was a time when the Vijayanagara dynasty was ruling, and Madurai was under the rule of Veerappa Nayakar, and Tanjavur was under the rule of Achudappa Nayakar, and they were using copper plates and stone inscriptions to disseminate information. And Henrique Henriquez, like the rest of the missionary scholars, fell in love with the language and composed grammar works and dictionaries, all of which are lost to us. Known as the father of Tamil press, upon his passing away was interned in the Our Lady of Snows Basilica here at Thoothukudi. But after this there was a gap till the beginning of the 19th century. Why? Because the East India Company had restricted the use of these printing machines to print any vernacular language for that matter, and natives were not allowed to operate any press. Maybe because they were afraid that these would be used to distribute propaganda materials against the British Empire itself in the ongoing freedom struggle. So we had to wait till 1835 when Sir Charles Metcalfe took over as collector of Madras and instituted a printing press within the Fort St. George, the Secretariat, and published copious works in all the South Indian languages. Many original publications brought out in Tamil then are now, of course, lost to us. Bishop Caldwell epitomized the direction and quality of this missionary linguistic pursuit, which is as important to the history of the Tamil people as was the archaeological discoveries made by Robert Bruce Foote, and what A.C. Bernal did for Tamil epigraphy by publishing in the year 1874 a handbook of South Indian paleography, a masterly work that captured the epigraphical journey in this part of the world. And also the likes of Hudson, Richard Byrne, and Father Lowenthal, who contributed to the field of numismatics by preparing a catalogue of all the coins issued from the 2nd century AD Pandyan dynasty to the 16th century Nayak rule. Even after all this, till the 19th century, not much research was done in terms of unraveling history by data mining Tamil literature itself by native scholars, either because they lacked the linguistic tools or because they had a sense of apathy, as they were made to believe that Sanskrit was the mother of all Indian languages. Earlier in the year 1786, Sir William Jones, who took over as the Justice of the Supreme Court at Calcutta, the then capital of the British Empire, had announced to the world that Sanskrit was the mother of all Indian languages and that it was related to European languages, and had actually coined the term Indo-European. Luckily for us, a serendipitous moment happened when a British savant and civil service administrator ended up discovering and announcing to the world that the South Indian family of languages was an independent group of languages and Tamil was its mother. Why serendipitous? He did not embark on a task of linguistic enquiry as did the other scholars, but was actually undertaking a civil administrative exercise for the East India Company itself. We are referring here to Sir Francis White Ellis, who came to India and took over as the Collector of Madras in the year 1810 at a very young age of 33. In the year 1811, he constituted and chaired a committee known as the Committee of Examination of Junior Civil Servants. Their idea was to familiarize the junior officers who were being recruited from England with the South Indian languages that would make them administer these regions effectively and efficiently wherever they were posted. And the committee identified 5 major languages of South India: High Tamil, Low Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam and Kannada. High Tamil being the Senthamil or classical Tamil, and Low Tamil being the colloquial or spoken form of the language. The committee recommended the teaching of Tamil as representative of all the 5 dialects that they had chosen, which itself was proof that it was the root language or mother language. And the College of Fort St. George was entrusted with the task of creating the textbook for this language training, and it was while undertaking this task that Ellis came up with his brilliant The Dravidian Proof. Taking Sanskrit as a base, as it was considered as the mother language till that time, he constructed columns and rows of root words from Sanskrit to all the 4 South Indian languages, what we call today as cognate coding, and his scholarliness was of such high aptitude that he went to the source for each and every one of these languages. For example, for Sanskrit, he took the root words from Dhatupada, which is a lexical list used by the great Sanskrit grammarian Panini himself. And by studying this, he found out that the South Indian group of languages were an independent group having nothing to do with Sanskrit, and that Tamil was its mother. Subsequently, Ellis too fell in love with Tamil and did extensive research over the next decade. He translated parts of the Tirukkural in English and wrote extensive commentaries. And when in the year 1818, Madras constituency was caught in the grips of a famine, he dug 27 wells and said that it was the Tirukkural that inspired him to take up this act. And how do we know this? A stone inscription with beautiful Tamil poetry capturing this incident created by him is today found in the ASI museum inside the Thirumalai Nayakar Mahal here in Madurai. He even made the Royal Mint issue a gold coin with the imagery of Thiruvalluvar, which is today there in the Egmore Museum at Chennai. He died at a very young age of 42 and lies unsung in a grave at Dindigul. And where I live in Madurai, New Ellis Nagar, is named after him. And I'm sure most of us living here don't even know the great scholar whom their area is named after. Caldwell took up this research work from Ellis, and in the preface to his very noted grammatical work published in 1856, duly acknowledges Ellis with having given the foundation for his work. What followed in the 19th century came to be known as the Tamil Renaissance, and many great stalwarts and savants took a keen interest in recreating the history of Tamil with the help of Tamil literature. The most prominent among them, such as U.V. Saminatha Iyer, Maraimalai Adigal, J.M. Nallasamy Pillai, Nasi Kandaya, M.S. Purnalingam, K. Sivaraja, Professor P. Sundaram Pillai, to name a few. And here I would like to acknowledge my father and the history professor Dr. K. Nambi Aruran, the grandson of Maraimalai Adigal, whose PhD dissertation submitted to the School of African and Oriental Studies in London in the year 1976, titled Tamil Renaissance and Dravidian Nationalism, with special reference to the works of Maraimalai Adigal, inspired me to do this series on Know Your Roots. Professor P. Sundaram Pillai, the author of Manonmaniyam, observed, Sadumarai Ariyam Varumun Jagam Muzhudum Ninadayina Mudumozhi Ni, Anadiyena Mozhiguvadum Viyappame. He was not just a philosopher and an erudite scholar and a historian, but also a visionary. In his Some Milestones in the History of Tamil Literature, he writes how Tamil people lived in the whole of the Indian subcontinent before the arrival of the Aryans, and he wrote with conviction that the orientation of ancient Indian history will be correct only if the important part played by the Tamils in its unbroken development is correctly comprehended, and strongly opined that excavations should be conducted along the Vaigai and Tamarabarani and not just focus on the Gangetic plains and the Sindh. While today archaeology and its subdisciplines such as archaeolinguistics are attesting to his conviction, at that time Sundaram Pillai himself relied on Tamil literature, as these fields of specialization had not developed. Proof that data mining into Sangam literature will help us reconstruct our history. While Tamil literature has had a continuous growth with innumerable stalwarts and scholars appearing in every decade, adding to its rich treasure trove, well, I will not be able to go into the entire length of it here, but the monumental work published by the IAS officer M.S. Purnalingam Pillai in the year 1929, titled Tamil Literature, even if we are not familiar with the language enough to read all these great classical works, just going through this book, Tamil Literature, fills us with a sense of pride and awe as to the humongous treasure that we have collected over the years. So while the literature part of it was growing continuously, what was absent was the scientific linguistic inquiry into establishing its antiquity. While Sanskrit had a clear head start, way back in the year 1657, Tara Shuko, a Mughal emperor, was enamored by Sanskrit and, thanks to his generosity, had the Upanishads translated into Persian. And from there, these works found their way into Europe, and as early as in 1801, some of these Upanishads were translated into Latin. The noted scientist and great educationist Dr. V.C. Kulandaisamy points out in an article how Providence favored Sanskrit a second time when the British shifted their capital from Chennai to Calcutta. It was then that Sir William Jones came and took charge as Justice of the Supreme Court, and he was a linguistic prodigy who had a very great knowledge in Latin, Greek, Persian, Arabic, his native Welsh, Hebrew, of course, besides English. And when he took over as the Supreme Court judge, he found that the local lawyers often quoted from out of Sanskrit texts like the Manusmriti, quoting local laws. And in order to learn them, he took a 3-year hiatus and got into studying Sanskrit. It was then that he was struck by the similarity of the sounds the cognate roots between Sanskrit and the European languages. If I were to give an example, Sanskrit Pitru and Matru sounding very much like the Latin Pater and Mater and German Vater and Mother, English father, mother and Greek pater and mater, and obvious conclusion was that these languages were all related. He was not the first to announce this, but he formed the Royal Asiatic Society and undertook serious and scholarly research and coined the term Indo-European languages. And this led to chairs being instituted in Western universities being headed by such scholars as Burgess and Max Muller. Well, better late than never, and today a Tamil chair has been constituted in the Harvard University in the United States, and there are other universities such as those in Houston and Toronto, Canada following suit. And we will continue with exploring our history through our language in the next episode. Vanakkam.